Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to have a look at the Retributor's first look. So this is from the Battle Sisters Bulletin, as you can quite clearly see, because it says so on the screen. And at first, I quite liked this model. I quite like this. I haven't been doing that much about the Battle Sister stuff, because it's been very kind of slow. It's like a slow drip of information that we've been given. And for the most part, it's looked like the current Sisters of Battle, but updated, which is exactly what I wanted, and also not really something to write home about in as much as we're getting new ones, and that's the important bit. It seems to be that they are sticking pretty faithfully to the design that we're used to, and that's good, that's what I'd like. So it's kind of been a thing of, oh, neat, and then move on. This, though, is weird, right? This has been bugging me, and I couldn't work out why this model looks off, this render looks off. So The first example given is the one with the heavy bolter. We've seen the heavy bolter before. Looks good. I like it. I especially like the fact that it's got the the vertical handle on the top. That feels quite old school. I quite like that. Overall, it's a decent model. I like it. The heavy bolter looks good. The armour looks good. It looks nice and classic Sisters of Battle. You've got the robe over the top. The armour, like the shoulder pads with the what looks like almost like a rebreather tube thing going on the front. Again, it all looks decent. I especially like the helmet with the targeting system in it. All good. But there is one part of this model that looks really weird, and it took me ages to work out why. There's part of this that looks unfinished, and it's there. From like the waist to the shoulder pads on the chest and stomach, it looks like there's not really any detail. The thing is, there is detail. You can clearly see that there's a strap there. And essentially what it looks like to me is that she's got the power armour on, and then over the top of the power armour you have a robe, which then has the shoulder pads on top of the robe, which is a little bit weird, but it's fine. It's all just stylistic stuff, isn't it? But it looks quite featureless, and it took me a while to work out why that is. It's because it is that robe that's over the top. So you've got this kind of flowing cloth down the front of the legs, you've got it down the back, you've got the sleeves there, you can clearly see it fastens, there's a seam down the middle, and then there's straps that fasten it over. The thing is, I don't think that that's actually a very good look in combination with a heavy weapon, because it makes part of the body look like it's just not been finished. And the thing is, it's because it's cloth and it's not armour. There's a very distinct look to Sisters of Battle, which they have so far stuck with. They have stuck with this kind of, like, there's like a corset built into the armour, or goes over the top of the armour, or whatever variation it happens to be depending on the model. You can see it in the Seraphim that they showed off, you can see it in the current Seraphim that we have, the ones that you get with Celestine, which, they're updated sculpts, but they are pretty similar to the older ones. They all follow that same principle, whereby there is an abundance of detail across pretty much every part of the model. There are lots of little things all over it, like all the little rivets and stuff, all the little things that stand out, the little, I forget the name of it, the fleur thingies. That's probably not how you pronounce that, but you know what I mean. There's always been a lot of that on Sisters of Battle, and the actual main body of a Sister of Battle is in a way the biggest culprit of that. That kind of heavily stylised, corseted look is one of the things that makes their power armour and makes their overall shape so quickly distinguishable from other female models in armour, of which there are now a fair few. That look that this Retributor has, I think would actually work pretty well if it wasn't for the fact that half of it is covered by a heavy bolter, because the actual detail for that part of the model is lost behind the gun. In this specific example, it just looks like it's not been finished, and I don't know why, but it actually stands out, and not in a good way, because it's counter to what I think you're used to seeing when you see a Sister of Battle, when you're used to seeing that particular kind of heavily ornamented version of power armour. When that is lacking, it just looks kind of not quite there, which is disappointing, because overall I really like the look of it, but it's like there's this blank space that just hasn't been finished off. It's like it's not been fully rendered, it's not had the detail put on at the end of the process. It's It's just there. The thing is, there are variations of this, right? So this is another one of the Retributors, and I absolutely love that, by the way. That looks quality. It looks dead good. This works better, because you still have that same kind of approach in terms of the robes over the power armor and then under the shoulder pads. Again, it's a similar overall look, but it has more detail in the clasps, and it is more obvious because the clasps go up further. It's only a small thing, but that to me looks like a finished, complete, close, well, very, very, very close to classic Sisters of Battle model. The other one doesn't, and it's all because the actual detail for like the upper half of that model is lost behind the weapon. I would actually say that by and large, for everything that they've done for the Sisters of Battle, I've liked all of it. This particular kind of look, this particular way of doing things for the Retributors, I think would almost be served better on a different model. One that doesn't have such a huge clunky weapon. Something where you can actually see the lines of the cloth, where you can see the seam on it, where you can see the straps keeping it buckled. It would work better on something that wasn't carrying such a massive gun. Purely because you would get that detail that is clearly below this heavy bolter, and it would be out in the open, and so it wouldn't look as though there was no detail further up. It's such a contrast, I think, is the issue, where you've got all these buttonholes down here, you've got the symbol there, you've got a skull on the top part of the armor, you've got a clasp that you can't see, and then just a blank space, where normally on a Sister of Battle there would be some form of ornamentation. Now, of course, that ornamentation is like a debate of its own. The whole boob armor thing is like a whole thing, it's a whole argument, it's a whole debate that we're not going to get into in this video. But it is a consistent thing throughout the range. It is something that is fairly obviously there for the most part. And in the cases where it's not, which I think are actually relatively rare, it's at least obvious as to what detail there is, because the model is laid out in such a way that you can see the rest of the detail on the body, whereas this lacks that. This is the first Sisters of Battle thing that I've seen, and it's only specifically this model. I don't think it's necessarily all the Retributor stuff, and it depends on how many variations there are of the upper body for the Retributors, but in this specific instance, it doesn't work that great because of the part of that detail being lost behind the weapon. It's nowhere near as bad here. I would argue that looks perfectly fine. It works perfectly well. It looks finished because you have that extra detail in that gap. I would prefer to see more in the way of that, where you stick to the heavily ornamented stuff and that ornamentation is obvious, than having these weird kind of blank gaps where on most of the other models you would expect to see something, but on this one specifically, no. It just looks like they didn't get that far. This Retributor I really, really like. To be honest, combining that body with the helmet from the other one with the targeting display, although the rebreather mask is kind of badass, so even though I'm not a fan of bare heads, I think I could actually go for that. But yeah, this is the first time we've had a Battle Sister Bulletin, and I've looked at it and gone, yeah. I mean, I've really enjoyed the process of what they've shown off so far. I've enjoyed the way they've actually talked us through what they're doing, and seeing some kind of glimpse as to how all this stuff works. It's a nice way of, I wouldn't even say it necessarily builds up hype, it just feels like we're being kept informed. How true that is, I don't know. There could be way more stuff that they're not letting on about, which is entirely and probably possible. But I like the way they've done this, and this is the first one where I've looked at it and gone, yeah, and I just couldn't work out why. And then I did, and then I thought, you know what, I'll tell you, because I've seen a couple of other people, especially a few people on Twitter who are like, I don't know why I don't like this, but I don't, and it's weird, and I should. So, yeah, it's slightly disappointing on that one particular thing, but overall, I've really liked what they've done, which is why this one stood out a little bit, but not in a necessarily positive way. Anyway, that was more rambly than I meant it to be. Thank you very much for watching. What do you reckon of what they've shown off so far for the Sisters of Battle? You happy with it? You think it looks good? You think they're doing a good job? Is there anything that you think needs to be reworked? Do you think it does need more detail, or do you think actually having less detail on some is not necessarily a bad thing, it just emphasises what's on the others? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all of that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.